Did you ever think that you would get into the fashion and shoe world?
I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I think I probably have one of the best factories in the world right now.
How did you think about the go-to-market when no one had ever seen, heard of your shoes or tried them on?
I think we're just crazy. Literally like crazy. It was me speaking on the internet about all the key points that were very different in our shoes.
Marina, how heavily did you rely on your contacts? Were you calling people that you had worked with before?
Someone told me at the time, they were like, you have launched everyone in the business. Now it's your turn to be shameless. And if you don't do it, no one will do it for you.
If someone is not familiar with your brand, what's the one thing that you would want them to know?
Highest quality footwear out there.
I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two. Before 2020, Marina Larroudé worked in fashion at Teen Vogue and Barney's. Her husband, Ricardo, worked in finance. Then the pandemic hit, and Marina and Ricardo both got let go from their jobs, which sounds like the ultimate time to play it safe. Instead, Marina and Ricardo launched a shoe brand from their dining room table. Cut to the present, Larroudé has become one of the fastest growing names in the entire footwear industry. In this episode, Marina and Ricardo share how they went from their corporate jobs to building a vertically integrated factory in Brazil, why they believe betting big on infrastructure was the key to sustainable growth, and what the future of e-commerce looks like in an industry where many luxury e-commerce platforms are struggling right now. They also open up about the emotional highs and lows of entrepreneurship, the power of Brazilian design DNA, and why they're very bullish on their specific segment of the market. This is Marina and Ricardo Larroudé's Social Currency. Marina, Ricardo, welcome to Social Currency.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Happy to be here.
So I want to get into the full business of Larroudé, but before we get there,
okay,
I want to start with your role, Marina, before you got into the whole world of what you're building now. So you were a fashion director at both Teen Vogue and Barney's.
Correct.
And I need to know, because that type of role is so fascinating, so interesting to so many people. What were those roles like?
Oh my God, they were like so fun. I keep saying that it was my vacation life, right? All I had to do it was to see beautiful clothes and make an edit for the magazine or, at Barney's. My role was sort of divided in three. So I was in charge of like all the looks for the catalogs, the lookbooks, like all the digital content that you'd see in terms of like the fashion in that. And then creating new designers to bring it to the store. And then part of my role at Barney's, it was also developing private label for ready-to-wear shoes and handbags, which I learned so much prior to do this, what I'm doing now.
Ricardo, you had as far as you can possibly go away from shoes in your world before obviously starting Larroudé. So let's start with you in terms of your background. So I read that you worked in private equity.
Yes.
And you also led global roles in pretty big companies.
Yes.
So did you ever think that you would get into the fashion and shoe world?
No, not at all. In fact, I would bet heavily against. I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but I feel it's working. I'm actually quite happy.
He says that it's his favorite role
It's my favorite job so far, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And so there was this serendipitous moment for you two, or
Correct.
At the time, it did not feel like serendipity, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we're going back to the earlier days of the pandemic in 2020, and you both were no longer working.
Yeah.
And you decided to start this company. So I want to go back to what you were thinking at that time and what really led to that decision. What was that conversation like in the very early days of, okay, we're actually going to go in and start this company together?
I think it was just so confusing, right? It was the pandemic, everyone was home, it was the lockdown. If there was any other moment, and with all the career that I had, I could have been doing freelance, right? For magazines or other publications or retailers or any of that, but there wasn't that opportunity. You couldn't even network with anyone. You couldn't search for a job, right? During that time, there wasn't a moment that you're like, okay, let's set up a coffee. None of that was actually possible. And then it started with the thing that I was like, okay, I used to do private label, for Barney's in terms of like shoes and bags. And Ricardo start studying the industry, right? You start studying what the industry was like. And really one conversation, it wasn't necessarily like, this is the way that we're going to go. It was more organically in the way that he started studying the market. I was like, this is where I see the product and where I see where things should go. And then we were like, okay, let's do one shoebox, right? Let's do a logo, and then let's figure out a factory to do a sample. So we started very organically while you were still looking for a job, right?
Yeah. But the thing that I figured out was that jobs, even if we were like looking for another job, when things really hit the fan, the job doesn't bring you security, and it's the ability to control your future. We both had great jobs, and we were out of a job because the pandemic hit. And then even the ones that we would get into, we didn't know how long that thing was going to take. Mm-hmm. So let's try to do something that we can control our future going forward. And it gave me this thought. I was like, well, a lot of people that had jobs, and I was like, well, eventually something might happen to them. It actually will likely happen to them, in their careers. And I was like, well, maybe we should just try to figure out our own. And this whole creator economy that was coming. And I was like, well, maybe we should try to create something, and let's do it at scale. And the unit economics
Let's
worked.
build it for scale.
Yeah, let's build it for scale.
We're like, we're going to build this for scale. And I remember very early on, Ricardo was, talking to Wilson Sonsini, which is the amazing lawyer company that they have done, the law firm, that they have done Uber, right? And they were like, okay, can you put the paperwork together? And I was like, why do we need all of this? It's just me and you out of our closet. So the company was set up correctly since day one, even though we were like bootstrapping, right? Even though we were
Marina wanted to have the shoes be shipped from our house. I was like,
I was like, don't you want to have the shoes like sent here? We have a room. We just get the shoes out. He was like, no, we're going to find a 3PL. So, but then it was just me and him, and we had, 2 other people that were helping us at the time. But it was very organic.
Yeah.
It was very small and very organic. And then the other thing is, once you are unemployed and once you already lost everything it's a plus, right? If you sell a $300 shoe that day, you're like, oh my God, I made it, right? So there's also that feeling that you can always go up because there's nothing else to lose. And I think that's what it made us start.
From the early days, you're obviously trying to keep costs down. Marina, you're trying to sell shoes out of your closet. So Ricardo, at what point did you go from, okay, I'm understanding the landscape of the industry more generally, to, wow, I really want to double down here and join Marina and scale this?
I think that 2023 was a key year that we were just ordering from factories. Then eventually we would run out of the things that really were popular. And then when I figured out that we opened the first called development studio, and I started producing for myself, and we could start to chase demand, the business really changed the speed of growth. That really took off because you never know what's going to really sell. And the ability to then chase that very quickly within the season was very important. And not only that, but we do the redesign even before things were launched. But I think 2023
But Ricardo
was a key
never
year.
left.
Yeah.
What he did is he took on a second job to pay the bills.
Okay, wow.
So he never left and then came back. He was doing it like over the weekend, at night, like other ways. Mm-hmm. But he never left.
Yeah, but the business required
But then there was
less.
a moment when the business was standalone, let's
In a way,
say, sort of like a
to run
toddler. Then he was like,
website.
okay, I can quit my job to focus just on this, right?
Yeah, we were running a website, and then we were placing orders in factories, and then we would have sales to wholesale. So that's the amount of activity that you have to do are much smaller. Once you have to then make things yourself, you have to sell things yourself.
Vertically
you have to
integrated,
activate
it's
it.
a different beast.
It becomes a different thing. So I think that there was a change that happened in 2023. Actually, it was 22. Then we opened the first factory.
Yes,
Yes.
but it was almost like a simple factory.
Yeah,
compared to what we do now.
April
It was like
22.
70 pairs a
April
day, and
22
now
was
we are
when
doing
things
like
really changed.
1,500
It
a
was
day.
April
So it's a
2022.
different.
You said that the company was scaling, and obviously you had that big moment in 23.
22 was when things changed the speed of growth, for sure.
Was there anything on the actual design side or fashion side that you think made that difference? Or do you think it was this slow trickle of people learning about the brand, getting exposure to it, and then there was this moment that kind of led to a hockey stick?
I think it was all things combined, because we have always been so data driven and looking what the customers were shopping from us and then designing based on that. So we always wanted to do a brand that felt very much like a wardrobing for women, right? Not one item, a hit wonder. That I'm always concerned, because if you have one item, it's amazing, great. You can go viral, you can sell a lot, you can make a lot of money, but then what is next, right? I always wanted the brand to have that sort of longevity that does not matter if it is spring or fall, you are able to sell to a woman. So has always been around like we have the best sandal for her to go to a wedding, right? We have the best shoe for her to go to work. So has always been around those, all the items that the woman needs in their lives, and has always been like that. But then what Ricardo was able to build so impressively, once we had our factory, it was to replenishment fast based on what they wanted at that moment.
The first summer of 22, the ruffles were a big thing, and we were able to do the ruffles in-house very easily. That was one that we could chase. That was one of the big first hits we did. And the Milan was right after that. It was late in the summer. We did the Milan, which became, codes that we keep, designing, deeper into. So Milan has a whole family, has boots now, has the whole thing. Ruffles we still do. A lot of people copy them too.
But then we introduced sneakers. Then we did ballet flats that we didn't have before, and then we start, like our collection for boots became huge for this season. Mm-hmm. So we really designed based on the wardrobing for women and what they need, and then that help us continue the growth.
If we go back to the early days when you had your first product, you said that you had worked with other manufacturers, you weren't doing it yourself. What was the go-to-market like? Because something like a shoe, it requires a level of obviously trying it on and doing anything direct to consumer when you don't have a retail store is challenging. So how did you think about the go-to-market when no one had ever seen, heard of your shoes or tried them on?
I think we're just crazy.
Yeah.
Look back.
Yeah.
Literally like crazy. It was me speaking on the internet about all the key points that were very different in our shoes, mm-hmm. that it wasn't,
I think that one thing we did on the communication, the differentiators in our shoe, we were like one of the first ones that we put like little arrows and saying, this is them for this is them for that. And I think a lot of other brands did that on like backpacks and stuff, but no one did it on shoes. The DTC market for shoes, I think there's a lot of tricks that we did on how to communicate and how do we walk and the zoom in and having like the hooks inside the videos that we did. We were the new ones. Now a lot of people do it. Like you see people like twisting shoes. We were the first ones to do that.
And so many things, right? Like even like the insole of our shoes, they had to match the outsole. And then when we first launched, everyone else was just doing those beige insoles. So we were disruptive in so many things. And the footwear business, it was very dormant in America. When you're thinking about like Stuart or Vince Camuto had passed away, there wasn't a lot of newness, and there wasn't a lot of newness in terms of like DTC and how they talk. Also because it's very hard to produce a shoe, which is different than a beauty brand, right? How many beauty brands after Glossier?
Literally.
Countless. But then with shoes, it's very hard to manufacture them. It's very hard to develop a new construction. It's very expensive to develop a new last. So we did all of those things. Mm-hmm. Because even when we launched, it was a pandemic and everyone was doing tie-dye sweatshirts. How many sweatshirt brands did you see out there? But it's easy. So I think that's also one of the other things for the entrepreneurs out there to understand how is the market, not only what they're going to bring to market, that it's different. In our case, it was the product was different. No one was doing high-end quality items at our price point, but then the marketing felt very disruptive as well for that industry. For sure, people were selling, poppy soda in different way than Coca-Cola was doing. But in terms of footwear, no one was doing the marketing the way that we were doing, but then also the quality of the item was very disruptive as well.
But you mentioned the word viral. There's something about footwear that is viral. The best place to sell shoes is not on shelves on stores, it's actually on other people's feet. So just by seeding, and then if you think about it, most of the shoes, I love, and then you ask, and then you find out, then you just Google and then you can buy if it's a seamless experience. But the best thing was the more we get the shoes out, the more we get people speaking positively. And our repeat rate has been very high. So a lot of our growth has been from clients that keep coming back. We have a over 50% repeat rate within 12 months. So it's pretty.
Then we have from celebrities to real women, everyone is like, oh my God, this is so comfortable. I can dance all night long. We have always developed a shoe that I still try it on every prototype to make sure that it's comfortable, to make sure that you can walk in them. And that I also think it's very key, right? We really care deep about the product. So at the end of the day, that goes back. If the product's really good, it's going to sell. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of money on marketing, but then it's not going to work in the long run.
We have a saying that good products make great brands, but it's not all great brands that make good products. So it's if you start from the product, it's a better chance of having a great brand.
I also heard that, Marina, the sample size for the shoes just happens to be your shoe size.
Yes. But you know convenient. What? Well, but you know what? It is. I did not know that until we had our factory. Basically, it is for you to scale up or down. You need to start at 6.5.
There
and
you
I was
go.
like, this is
you
perfect.
could theoretically start at 7, or you could, but 6.5 is a good place to start. Yeah.
And such a unique fact about shoes of how people will so often share the types of shoes that they're wearing, the brands of shoes that they're wearing with their friends, with whoever they see. And it's one of those things that spreads, I think, perhaps faster, or it's just a unique element of the shoe category more generally. Obviously, that happens with fashion more broadly too, but because shoes are literally what you're using to walk, to transport yourself. Comfort is also such a huge important aspect of whether or not you want to wear something. Really fascinating, the fact that so many of your customers, you said over 50% in a 12 months.
Within 12 months.
That's an incredible stat.
It's super
that
high.
Very few
but
fashion
if you think
companies
about the number
can
of brands in footwear, it's not it's a lot more concentrated. It's a very hard industry to do quality products in. So the moment you find one that you like, and it's every fit business, jeans is that way, suits is that way, things that tend to be tight and they like millimeters will affect how they matter. So you have to be very precise. So if you're going to be, dealing with how people stand on their own, you might as well do a good product. And I say that there's usually 3 ways to get people to come back for that repeat rate. One, first of all, is for first purchase, is seeing something and saying, I like this. You pick it, you go after it. Once you touch it, you're like, this is better than I expected. That's the second wow. The third one is that you've been wearing a pair of shoes for 30 days, then you have the client. Then it's like you get them to come back. So it's really a trust business for people. And then we want to always make shoes that don't hurt. And that's why she tries them. She walks around with them. We do have people that walk around the factory all day long. They're also the same size as, Marina's shoe size. And they test a lot. There's a lot of miles that are walked on before we manufacture them.
Marina, how heavily did you rely on your contacts in the industry? Because you had worked in the industry for, what was it? A few
Almost,
decades at that
years.
point. So when you were launching the business, were you calling people that you had worked with before?
So someone told me at the time, they were like, you have launched everyone in the business, right? From Gianvito Rossi to Aquazzura to, and Jonathan Cohen, like all the American designers that you can think of. I came and I saw them, at my office in different capacities, either as an editor or later on. And then this person looked up to me. They were like, now it's your turn to ask. Now it's your turn to be shameless. And if you don't do it, no one will do it for you. And that stays with me until today. If I don't do it, no one else will. So I'll do it up to today. If there's a celebrity that I wanted to be wearing Larroudés, if there's a stylist that I was like, hi, I love your style. I would love to send you a pair. So I still do it. And I do it every day, multiple times in a day. And at the end of the day, the responsibility, it's on us, right? We are the ones who need to make it happen. And of course, we delegate now, but then it's my responsibility. And I reach out to everyone under the sun, people that I know and people that I do not know.
This is for both of you, that there is perhaps a level of responsibility, or perhaps you feel even more connected to the brand because it's literally your name?
The name always sounded like a brand, and but we don't treat it like it's our thing. We
It's
always
his
look
name,
at it. Yeah.
right?
No, it's
his
our name.
No, I'm joking, but I'm just like, he was born
It was my
with
grandfather's name.
He
but
was born to it.
Yeah.
It's my marriage right,
Yeah.
but he was born with it.
Yeah. So it does. I think it brings a lot of credibility, and when people see and there's a person behind, I mean, you kind of put your name to the door. If you're in a boat, you basically attach yourself to the boat. So people say, well, he's not going to let that thing go down. So they'll be around. I can't just walk away, you know? So I think it brings a lot of credibility, but I really see it as, you know,
responsibility.
But someone was, you know, we had the factory and the name is on the top of the building. And he said, don't you think that this is the coolest thing that you walk into the building that has your name on it? And I said, I never stopped to think about it. For me, it's like, I just work here. Yeah. It's really, I was like, some things that you're lucky that the name sounds good. It feels like a brand. We're both, you know, dual citizens. We get to do stuff in Brazil, which is a great powerhouse for making footwear. We are both American. So
I see the brand as our third child, right? And the same way that I am responsible for my kids and I want them to make me proud, I want the brand to make us proud, but I don't see it as me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the brand is
Does it
not
make
really
sense? I see it as like it's my responsibility as it is my children, you know, and I need to raise them well, to succeed.
Can you share a moment, and this can be really from any point that you've scaled the company to, where things did not go as planned? So anything in the early days.
I'll tell this story because this is kind of funny. We used to sell a shoe that had acrylic heel. And then in the tip of
the rubber part of I don't know the name.
So then that thing fell off. It started falling off. And then at the time it was like 5 shoes. So then we went to the warehouse and we triple checked every one of those. And we
personally pulled and super glued each one back into the. Yeah.
So I mean, like, you know, any day there is something, right? Like, and then that was such a big thing at the time. And we're like, oh my God, what is going to happen? People are going to hate this. Like, you know, the bottom of the shoe is falling off. And then it was like, 50 pairs. So,
yeah.
But it was very stressful at that time.
But there's like in the journey of an entrepreneur, you're going to be like, it's all day. It's like always, it's always a new thing. There's always something going on. Like you're basically there to create something different. And because you're doing things different, most of the things you're doing are happening for the first time. I was just saying, like in the beginning, the first question is like, well, when you're putting this together, a lot of people when they go to put businesses together, they look at another business that exists and they kind of try to estimate everything that guy is spending money on. And then they try to do it themselves. And you shouldn't be thinking that way. Is that how do I actually get a business where I get a product to people? And what's the minimum I need to do to get this the right way? It's not about like spending money. Building business is not about coming up with a list of things to spend money on. It's about creating a product with the least amount of money that you could do it and getting it to people that will give you money in. It really is not. People come and ask us all the time, what's your cash burn? I said, we don't think about it a cash burn.
Like,
it was born as a business for us to do. Like obviously we had to start with some investment, but it was always a thing that we needed to make money on the first pairs that we were. We were not like, yo, this is like Jeff Bezos, I can go for losses.
No, we were like unemployed. We scraped our 401k. It was like, we need to make this
to make it work.
A business.
A lot of like building the factory and being vertically integrated, it was like, I got to make this profitable. Yeah. And when I think about the unit economics, it's like, well, what if we just made the shoes that sold? It's like, it's to lower the cost. You'd lower the cost because you're doing it yourself, so you cut a middleman. But then just being able to make more of the things that sell.
Yeah.
The cheapest shoe is the shoe that sold. You know, just pick a hypothetical. If you make a pair of shoe for $200, if you sell 50%, it's $400. If you sell 33%, it's $600. It's like, just try to sell everything that you make. That's the best thing you can do.
You had mentioned draining the 401k, using your savings.
Yeah.
So early on, that was clearly your mentality of bootstrapping.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've now talked a bit about the factory in Brazil that you guys have built from the ground up. So how has the journey been with building Larroudés from the financial side in terms of, or have you bootstrapped this whole way?
We had a first investment. We did like a friends and family round of about $1 million. And until March of this year, we didn't raise a dime. It was all, we didn't take a lot of money from the company. We used a lot of our own money to, live. But we didn't take any new money going into the business until we opened a round recently to try to, because as we built the factory, now we have to stock up on a lot of different things. We have a lot of more people that we hire. There's a lot more processes that, although I have a low working capital requirement, but it's not zero. So as the business continues to grow, I gotta, raise some money. We always had this thing that the best way to bring money into the company was the client. So either we're going to get a partner from Wholesale that wanted to have 25,000 pairs. We're like, great, we're happy to do this for you guys, but you have to prepay because a lot of you guys don't make it. And we would have to, need a working capital to build, 25,000 pairs. So we always use clients that really wanted to have our product, and they were getting at a discount. Now we have the pre-order that we do this with our clients, but we used to do, it was a pre-order coming from Wholesale before. They said, I'd like to have shoes in 4 months from now. I was like, great, pay them now, then I can make them for you. It would be a really cheap price for what they were getting in quality. And they all loved it. I think at one point we became number 2 brand inside Nordstrom. Yeah, I think we still are.
What would you say to other founders of companies who want to also work with these wholesalers, but how do they go into that negotiation saying, hey, you need to pay me up front when usually the terms are not structured?
Yeah, I think that you really got to think hard about, who they want to work for. And if you look at the landscape of brands in America that built their distribution through Wholesale, a lot of them didn't really make it. I mean, there are some success stories that everyone wants to replicate, but if you look at the number of people that failed versus the number that people that made it, it's very slim. So at the end, you do need to make products for your end client. So I do recommend creating a direct-to-consumer channel. Yeah. And we had a hybrid in the beginning, but I think the more we focus on the end client, the better it is. Selling is one thing. The second thing that happens is once in a while, they will come back and say, I need you to take this back.
RTV.
And then they're like, well, I thought that you sold the shoes not to clients, not back to me. So, and then they say, well, to place another order, I need you to take this back. And I was like, well, this doesn't work at the end.
And I want to call that out because what you just said, the RTV, I think that mass consumer actually isn't super educated on what this is. So can you break this down? Because it's mind-blowing once you actually learn about it.
I will, because I've been, in Wholesale before. And then just going back a little bit, when we opened 5 years ago, it was different landscape than it is today. Right? With Essence, with Saks, with all the conversations that are happening right now. So it's a whole different landscape. It wasn't necessarily amazing, but right now it's very tricky to launch a business with wholesale partners. You really have to choose very carefully. On the RTV, what happens is a wholesaler will come, they'll place a huge order or a small order, whatever the size of the order is. But at the end of the day, at zero risk for them. Then it takes them a month to receive the unit. It takes a month for them to display everywhere. It is a dinosaur, right? It's not like arriving in your warehouse, plugging it into your Shopify, immediately available to clients. So that entire process takes so long, and then it's there. Then they need to market the items. And then they have a 6-week pretty much turnaround for that item to sell. And then if something doesn't sell, then they call you and they're like, I need to send it back to you. And we're like, excuse me? What? So it's not necessarily a hard order. It is an option.
Yeah, they come with
to sell your goods.
The original markup is 55%. They're charging 2.4 times. They want to have that markup over things. And then this conversation, I just want to make sure for people that are getting into this business, they'll come and say, well, I'm not really reaching my margin, so I need you to take this back so I can keep buying more from you. But then if you look at them, a lot of them were public companies, and you can look, they all had gross margins in the 30s. So they will say, well, my growth margins are in the high 40s and with you, but they would return. And I think that it's just a norm that they do, is that they're always sending back whatever they didn't want to, because they sell it back to you at whatever they paid, really. It's not like at a, off price. And then some brands accept it back and some brands don't accept back.
And some brands accept it back with the promise that they're going to get a bigger order up front, right?
There was one that I won't name, but that they came and said, well, I need you to take $250,000 RTV because I need the margins now. But don't worry, we're gonna, work on.
We're gonna place $500,000, so you take it back to 150. Yes.
Yeah. To this day, I haven't received that order, and it's been like a year and a half. And
it happens quite often.
It happens quite often. Yeah.
Yeah. So in light of just learning about return to vendor and what that actually means for the business, it's basically impossible to continue to run a functioning business where the brand themselves has good margins when you're constantly
you're working for others.
Yeah. When I want to make sure you become a private label for the wholesalers, and in a way they always, well, when my private label I'm doing this. I said, no, you're not, because you're not. Whatever you're manufacturing, you don't get to sell at the prices that you think you claim to sell.
I guess we believe at Larroudés, okay, this is for us, and we believe in a marketplace business where we hold the inventory, we have the inventory, we turn the inventory on our website or small boutiques or with wholesalers in a marketplace, meaning that we will drop ship to them, but at a different margin. And then we don't do any other hard orders.
And
because we don't want to. We don't want to. We don't want to be hit with like RTV.
Yeah, most of the business is coming from online, and then from a management of inventory, we have our own factory, so we can keep replenishing that, and then they can pick up from the same place. Their client doesn't even know where it's coming from. So it's just and by the way, our assortment of things is much greater than what they picked. And they could pick things that are not things that are really selling. Like our Milan wasn't picked up by any wholesaler, and it's one of the
top sellers
top sellers. And they didn't. And then they started picking, putting them up. And that's the thing that probably sell most on their marketplace. The whole thing of transferring, on supply chain, is that every time, I have this thesis, that every time you put a transfer of risk,
especially
and you put a
with
step
shoes
between two parts, you cut the bandwidth of this business by half. So I think you should be in business with them, but don't do a transfer of risk. Then they become like sales agents. They become influencers of sale, which I think is probably a more aligned way to work. And I would try to convince them, say, well, you're going to make a 20% fee on this, but you don't have to put any money up. This is all free money. You can just, blast this email to all your customers, and you're going to get 20% of,
and you have
margin,
access to our inventory without doing anything.
And they were like, well, that's not really the business that we're in.
They
wanted to have inventory. They wanted to do. I think that the drop in margins that they had, that I think it used to be in the 40s and high 30s, came down to low 30s. But they never sped up, went faster on the number of turns that they did. So they needed to have almost twice the amount of turns that they had to match that same dollars to pay for the whole thing. But they never figured out replenishment, better reordering systems. They still work with EDI, which is like, to get a vendor to even have to figure out the systems to have EDI, it's a nightmare. And just getting an order process.
For you to ship to them, that's the reality of it. It's like you need to pack the boxes with certain rubber bands.
No, it's like the rubber bands cannot be this thick.
And then if the rubber band it's not done, or maybe the rubber band it's done, and then they send you a bill of $10K.
No, we had $30,000 from one of them that we
the details.
We clawed back because we have proof that we use the right rubber bands.
Go to Staples.
There's a whole revenue center that they are charging
billing brands
for not putting the right rubber band. It was $30,000. Of many, and then we got them all back because they were wrong. We have to take but you're sending it with the right rubber bands. But if you don't take a picture,
oh no,
you will get charged because you can't prove that you had the right. So this is the thing. It's complicated. It's not. It's a very complicated business for them as well. But the way that I think where they needed to invest was on technology and supply chain.
But then we are in different business,
and they leaned into the brands. That's why we built it in a different way.
You have your own factory,
yes.
Which is a really different way. And obviously from this conversation, it's incredibly positive for your business, and it's powered a lot of the agility and flexibility that your business has been able to have as you've scaled. So you two are from Brazil.
Yes.
Why Brazil for the factory?
Brazil was always at the same time zone. We're both from Brazil. Brazil is known to be a powerhouse. It's the second largest Western market for shoes anyways. All of Brazil produces 850 million pairs a year. Just to put it into perspective, Italy produces 70 million.
Wow.
Yes. The region that we're in alone, which is like within 30 miles, it's 5 cities, produces 150 million pairs. So that's like Spain and Italy together down in one region. And so it was like the place to be. We picked the city that had the most export-based
And then we started with
factory.
one factory, and then
We started with one factory. They couldn't keep up with us, so we ended up going to 3 other factories. At one point, I was managing 4 factories at the same time. I was developing shoes with 4 factories, and I was like, okay, I have to centralize the development office in one place, and then I would develop, and then I would feed it into the factories. Then I was like, well, I just developed, and I know how to make them. Let's start making them. And I started making them. I got to the point that I was making 300 pairs a day, and it was just cheaper, and it was quicker, and we started doing things internal. And I had never been into a shoe factory
I was
in my
going to
life.
say, it sounds like you had your
I like
hands
learning
full
new
of
things.
the design elements
I think I
too.
have probably I probably have one of the best factories in the world right now. Like from anyone.
But
like
then
from
it
any
was-
Italian factory, I think my factory is probably one of the most modern and best ones out there.
it happens to be that we are both Brazilian and American citizen. So that for us has also been very good, right? To get into this region that, as Ricardo says, and then they used to produce Frutori, Coach, Adidas, like everyone produces there. But then we're able to navigate because we can speak both languages, because we understand the country culturally, because we can hire a lawyer there, right?
Yeah.
It's been beneficial for us to be able to navigate both roads in a way that a lot of people produce there, but then they're not locals. We are locals.
Yeah, and I would imagine just having your experience. Did you both grow up in Brazil?
I was born in the US.
Okay.
Both my parents are Brazilian, and then I moved down when I was 5. That's why I sound less Brazilian than most other Brazilians. And then I went to college and everything. As soon as I graduated, I moved back to the US, and I've been here ever since. So I grew up in Brazil,
Yeah.
and both my parents are Brazilian. And I'm Brazilian too.
Yes.
And I moved here after college.
With both of your experience living in Brazil for as long as you both did, just having just even the cultural ties,
Yes.
of course, being able to speak the language is huge,
Yes.
but it seems like that probably gave you an edge
Of
over an
course.
American company who had no ties to Brazil,
Yeah.
who says, I want to start a factory there.
No, because
One of the
they're
lucky
looking for
things.
an agent, and then the agent, it's just, yeah, we've
Well,
seen
back
that.
in the day, if you look at how like Nine West was built, Vince Camuto and Jack Fisher arrived in Brazil, and then they had to find a local agent that would go to the factory, and the factory would still outsource the production to like other places. And then they would have like maybe sometimes a selling agent here to then sell to like the department. There would be like 6 people. We just do the whole thing. It's all, that's what we say. And then instead of hiring like a studio to do content, we do it in-house, and we just take pictures, and we have things like this in-house and do it,
Your model is called direct to demand,
Yeah.
obviously, because of everything that you're doing with the factory and you're owning the whole supply chain vertically. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about direct to demand, and specifically the pre-order piece too, because it functions very differently than other shoe companies or fashion companies more broadly.
So it started because it was Black Friday last year, and we didn't have a lot of inventory to run a sale. And because I've been in the fashion industry for all these years, I've been buying from my friends at wholesale price, right? And I don't know, I had access to amazing stuff, but I had a good deal, right? But still, I would have to wait 6 months, right? When I was placing my order. So then Ricardo comes and he's like, we're going to put your entire spring collection available on the website right now at 30% discount. So people would buy ahead of time, and then we would deliver to them when it's ready. And I think at the time it was like a 3 months lead time.
It was
Probably
like,
more.
I think we put it up, it was the first day of December, and we said
Yeah.
we'd deliver by February.
Yes, by February. And then that took off. And the minute that took off, because you have to see that on our seat, sometimes you try things, and then if it doesn't work, then we'll stop. But then that took a life on its own. And then we're like, oh my God, customers would like to pre-order
It's like
ahead
buying
of
a
time.
ticket, yeah.
They would like to, yes, if you're buying a ticket to Ibiza next summer, you would buy
should
it,
be
right?
cheaper.
And
Yeah.
you know that you're going to pay in advance,
Yeah.
and you're going to So that's the business that then we created, and then now it's a very big business for us.
The idea is that if you have a limited supply, and then shoes is something, if quality shoes is, and like flights is also limited. You can't just have unlimited tickets, and change, slots and everything for airlines. You should sell things in advance for people, because planning ahead should pay off. And a lot of things that people buy are event-based. It's vacations. They're going to be thinking about, wardrobe. There's weddings to attend. They're fine. And if they can buy it, with a discount ahead of time. We're driving fashion from a front-wheel drive car that we basically find the demand, and it pulls the whole supply chain to the customer, which I think a lot of fashion, particularly in America, they do real traction, that they manufacture a bunch of things and then they try to push it out to the client like crazy. And if you think about it, there's some perishableness, there's some shelf time that products have on fashion items. And just like food, and food actually distributes in a way that, like, slowly there's a truck that goes up, Madison Avenue, and goes to every store and drops off, Parmesan cheese, or, to supermarkets. Why can't we replicate that for fashion? And I think that a lot of European brands that manufacture, and they're vertically integrated in Europe, do it that way, that they don't try to build a bunch of things and then push it to get sold out. They basically find the demand and they pull the supply chain to better serve the customer. So I think it's a front pull versus push strategy on how we do things. We're going to get better and better at this, because as we're building out capacity, we're buying more raw materials. And we
have only been in business for 5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we
and
launched
it's still bootstrapped.
The direct-to-demand was really launched a year ago. Really.
And we are being compared to like the big guys, and we're not. We're still a mom and pop. No, not really.
It is a mom and pop. Yeah, it is exactly that.
Mom and pop.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have read, speaking of all the success you've had in 5 years, that your company is one of the fastest growing mid-tier shoe brands in the world. And so for anyone who isn't a shoe expert, I know we've been really in the weeds about the industry and how you've scaled, but what does the mid-tier category look like? Who are the players in it? What does the space look like?
For me, I like to really think about the mid-tier in terms of price point, right? In terms of like Tory, Coach, even it's Stuart, it's way too expensive from, that. But our shoe is the same high-end quality as a Manolo, a Jimmy Choo, all the things. I've been in high fashion for such a long time, and I wanted to create a high fashion footwear brand that more women could join the conversation. So if you think about Pauline in terms of, their handbags, and then they're able to price in a different way, because we cut the entire middleman, because we became vertically integrated. Those are like the middleman costs that we're able to take out to deliver a better product to the end client at a different price point, right? So for me, the mid-tier, I just like to say that in terms of the price point, but never in terms of product.
Yeah.
Our product is as high-end as any luxury brand out there.
Mm. Yep.
I think that's one of the reasons why we grow so much, is that we're actually a better product market fit. Mm-hmm. And that's why people come back. They're like, I'm not going to spend $1,000 for a shoe that I feel better when I buy a Larroudé.
I mean, there's been nonstop conversations around inflation and consumer sentiment and what people are willing to spend money on. And shoes is a category where everyone still needs to wear shoes every day. And when it comes to a splurge purchase, and you could say, splurging on nice shoes is one of them, people aren't as willing anymore to spend on the extra high end.
But even if you are, right? And this is what I always say, even if you want to buy an amazing Chanel ballerina flat, right? Or even if you want to buy the rock studs from Valentino, or any it item that you see out there that, we're not here to compete with those it items, right? But she still needs to go to a wedding. She still needs to go to a work interview. There are all these moments. She still needs a boot that is a black boot that she doesn't want to pay $2,000 for, like a black boot that has a high quality. But then she also doesn't want to buy a plastic shoe that is out there in the shoe dog world, right? And who is dressing her? So if she has 10 weddings in the summer and she wants a comfortable sandal that she's going to wear for like these 10 weddings, and then for the next 10 weddings in the summer, no one is serving her.
So if someone is not familiar with your brand, what's the one thing, this is for both of you, what's the one thing that you would want them to know?
Highest quality footwear out there. Highest fashion footwear out there.
I say that too. I mean, I invite people to understand that we're actually building our own stuff and look at the factory and see how we treat our employees.
Everything's
and
handmade.
Where we source materials. Everyone that's working for us has health insurance. We have career paths. People get equity in the business. About, there's 6 or 7% of the company now, it's in employees' hands. We do things the right way.
Then it's like, if you don't know what shoe to get, you get our Dolly platform sandal and you go to all of the weddings that you have and then you're going to be sold. That's it.
Yeah, the shoes speak for themselves.
Yes, just try it on.
Okay, so these are the questions that I ask every guest. First one is, can you share a system that you have in place? This can be individual or shared, that benefits your career or business. And it can be any kind of system.
For me, it's a routine.
Okay.
You have to be methodical about your routine, right? And for me, it is like waking up early, answer an email within 5 minutes that you receive. If it is something that you can answer in 5 minutes.
Setting up for this podcast, you responded very quickly. So I believe
I am on top of things. I try to do it. If it's going to take me 5 minutes, I do it right away. And that's been key to my career, so you can do more of more.
I tell you a story that a mentor asked me once, and it changed my life. That he was like, obviously, you know how to swim. You can swim very hard. I've seen you do some very hard things. But have you ever thought about going with the river instead of like fighting things? And I think the moment I started thinking that way, things became easier for me. That I could still swim, but if you can navigate, bigger trends or things that are happening, and you just don't fight, like you don't have to have, an effort for everything you do. There's some things that you should be carried on. That really changed how I go about things, is be a river. So it's like, instead of fighting with a river, just float, go. And if you need to swim towards something that's good that's happening. So don't fight rivers, go with them, be one. That's something
I love
about.
that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So my next question comes from the social currency corner, and it's a topic that we've discussed a little bit throughout this conversation, but we've seen these challenges across luxury e-commerce more broadly. You have Essence, Saks, Farfetch, countless companies that have been in the media over financial troubles or bankruptcy. So more broadly, how do these challenges in the luxury e-commerce sector impact your company?
I think we designed the business to be this direct to demand and work with them through marketplace, so we're less exposed. That for sure was the way that we approached. I think we kind of saw this coming. I think it's very hard for them to be selected. The world is very dynamic, and we do have logistical part of distributing products that are ready became a lot easier. I don't know if they need to stock up on things ahead of time. So you should really think twice about sending inventory to them. There's a way that you can reach their customers with your own inventory. Probably is the best way to do. The more we see these troubles, the more we build a business that's more direct to the consumer, and we work on our past customers are probably the greatest source of sales for us. We haven't been exposed that much because we haven't been, most of the things that they have,
I think Ricardo saw that coming probably a year and a half, 2 summers ago.
I think when we first opened the business.
Yeah. And we were like, we're not going to go there, right? We are going to move to a very different direction. And that's been in a strategic direction where we were like, we're going to build this way. And for me, I'm constantly thinking that for the customer, they don't know what an RTV is. They don't know all the things, the rubber bands, right? They have no clue about any of those things, but they care about a great product. They care how fast you're going to deliver to them. They care how the packaging is going to be. And all those things, we look internally and we're like, okay, we need to get it to them as fast as we can. Mm-hmm. And I think right now people are still shopping. They're shopping everywhere. Probably before 10 years ago, they were shopping at 5 key players, and that changed.
So let's end with a listener question. This question comes from Maxine. So, and I have a feeling, Ricardo, you're probably going to have some interesting thoughts here. So shoes happen to be a category with notoriously high return rates.
Yeah.
So how do you think about the return rate problem, if you even want to call it that, from both a design and business perspective?
From a design, we do have a process that we keep getting feedback from the customer back. So there's some shoes that we try to make the scaling up and down perfect. We try to make the fit perfect, but we need to be actively listening. So I think we do have probably one of the best jobs out there on fit, but we gotta be, the return will teach you about things that are not working from a client, either from a expectation to what they got. So, so the data that you get from return is actually quite valuable that people should get. And if you, that's why our shoes come with a protective peel at the bottom of the shoe so they can go back to be sold again. That's the thing that helps us by being quite accurate on sizing. And we can do that because we have our own factory. Our return rate is lower than the industry because we know what a 7 should feel like and what an 8 should feel like.
And then you're not working with many different factories, right? Because once you're working with many different factories, then each one would...
It could be, the difference could make... and then our repeat rate is very high. So we have over 50% repeat rate. And people that already bought our shoes tend to know what shoe size they are inside Larroudé. And we try to make it as accurate as possible. It's a combination of things that we do to take care of. So we listen to the return rate, and for specific reasons, we do listen on that a lot. We try to make sure that the shoe can be resold, so that's a big thing. So we can put it back in inventory, and we try to be really right about size. Most of the times that people return is that it wasn't the right size for them, and then they take another size. But you don't want to have that friction with your client. But that's how we do.
Thank you both so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This is such a great conversation. I think the listeners will really enjoy learning more about the behind the scenes. I think there are so many industries that are glamorized, as they should be.
Yeah.
But I love getting into the nitty gritty of how the business operations actually is standing up what
Yes.
people see on the e-commerce site that's beautiful and gorgeous. And the one thing I do want to call out, and I saw this on your Instagram as well as the site, the company is doing a collaboration with Candy Pratt's Price,
Correct.
who is an icon
Yeah.
in the fashion industry, and her shoes are the collaboration that you guys did is gorgeous. So I just wanted to call those out. So check them
Thank
out
you.
if you've not seen them.
Go check them out.
All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. I've been wanting to launch this show for so long. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this and how thrilled I am that you're actually here listening. It means the world to me. If you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast because it massively helps to support the work I do to bring the show to life. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, which is linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen. Social Currency is produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.